When Emma moved into her quaint, old Victorian house in a sleepy town, she was enchanted by its charm and character. The realtor mentioned that it had a rich history, but Emma didn't pry too much into the details. She was excited to start her new life, away from the bustling city. One chilly October evening, Emma decided to stay in and watch a movie. She curled up on the sofa with a bowl of popcorn and turned off the lights for maximum effect. Halfway through the film, she heard a faint whisper. At first she dismissed it as her imagination, but the whispers grew louder. They seemed to come from the walls, like someone was just behind the wallpaper, trying to communicate. She paused the movie and listened intently. "Emma." "Emma," the voice hissed. Her heart pounded as she stood up and cautiously approached the wall. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The whispering stopped abruptly, plunging the room into an eerie silence. She touched the wall, and it felt icy cold, sending shivers down her spine. Determined to find the source, Emma spent the next day investigating the house's history. She discovered that in the early 1900s, a young woman named Annabelle had lived there. Annabelle had a tragic end. She was found dead, walled up inside the house after being reported missing for months. Oh, that night, Emma heard the whispers again. "Help me. Please," they begged. Realizing Annabelle's spirit was reaching out to her, Emma decided to help. She located an old blueprint of the house and found a hidden room behind the walls of her living room. With trembling hands, she broke through the wall, revealing a small, dark space. Inside, she found the skeletal remains of Annabelle, clutching a diary. Emma read the final entries, filled with fear and desperation. Annabelle had been trapped alive by her abusive husband. Emma arranged for a proper burial for Annabelle, hoping to bring her peace. The whispers ceased, and the house felt lighter. But Emma never forgot the terror of those whispering walls and the spirit that cried for help from beyond the grave. After the burial, strange occurrences continued in the house, though less frightening. Lights would flicker, and doors would creak open on their own. Emma took these as signs that Annabelle was finally at peace, and she hoped the spirit was thanking her. Yet there were nights when she felt a presence watching over her, a cold breeze passing by, reminding her that the past could never be fully laid to rest. Jason had always been a skeptic, never believing in ghosts or the supernatural. So when he agreed to house sit for his aunt in her large, old mansion, he laughed off her warnings about strange occurrences. The first night was uneventful, but on the second night, things took a dark turn. Jason was lounging in the living room, engrossed in a book, when he heard faint footsteps upstairs. Assuming it was just the house settling, he ignored it. But the footsteps grew louder, pacing back and forth. Annoyed, Jason decided to investigate. As he climbed the stairs, the footsteps stopped. He checked every room but found nothing out of place. Shaking his head, he returned to his book. Around midnight, he heard the footsteps again, this time followed by a faint whisper. Jason, his blood ran cold. No one knew he was there except his aunt. He grabbed a flashlight and cautiously made his way upstairs again. In the dim light, he saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. It stood there, motionless, watching him. Jason's heart pounded in his chest as he approached it. The figure dissipated into thin air before he could reach it. Determined to get to the bottom of this, Jason started researching the house's history. He discovered that his aunt's mansion had once been an orphanage. In the early 1900s, a fire broke out, trapping several children and a caretaker inside. The caretaker, a woman named Margaret, was known for her cruelty and had been accused of locking children in the attic as punishment. That night, Jason decided to confront the entity. He stood in the hallway and called out, "Margaret, are you here?" The temperature dropped suddenly, and the shadowy figure reappeared. "You must leave," it whispered. "She is coming." The lights flickered, and Jason felt an oppressive presence closing in on him. He ran downstairs, but the figure followed, growing more solid and menacing. Panicked, Jason grabbed his car keys and fled the house. The next day he told his aunt what had happened. She confessed that she had experienced similar encounters but had hoped they would stop if she ignored them. Jason refused to stay in the house any longer, and his aunt eventually sold it. To this day, Jason cannot forget the terror he felt that night, and he now believes that some places are truly haunted by their dark pasts. His skepticism shattered, Jason often wonders about the children who perished in the fire and if their spirits ever found peace. The image of that shadowy figure at the end of the hallway still haunts his dreams, a reminder that some stories are never truly over. Lauren had just moved into her dream home, a charming cottage in the countryside. It was perfect, with its cozy rooms and picturesque surroundings. The previous owner had left behind an old portrait of a woman, which Lauren decided to hang in the living room. One evening, as she was unpacking, she noticed the portrait seemed different. The woman's eyes, once calm and serene, now appeared anxious and fearful. Dismissing it as a trick of the light, Lauren continued her work. A few nights later, she heard soft crying coming from the living room. She cautiously walked in, finding the room empty. The crying stopped as soon as she entered. Feeling unnerved, she checked the portrait again. This time, the woman's expression was one of sheer terror. Disturbed, Lauren took the portrait down and placed it in the attic. But that night, the crying returned, louder and more desperate. Unable to sleep, Lauren retrieved the portrait, hoping to find some explanation. As she inspected it closely, she noticed faint writing on the back of the canvas. It read, "Help me. Trapped inside." Find the key. Lauren's heart raced. She spent the next day searching the house for any hidden compartments or keys but found nothing. That night, the crying was joined by soft whispers. The cellar. The cellar, they urged. Lauren hesitated but decided to follow the whispers. She found a small, hidden door in the cellar, locked and covered in dust. Using a hairpin, she managed to pick the lock. Inside, she found a small, dark room with another portrait, identical to the one in the living room. As she brought the two portraits together, the woman in the painting seemed to relax, her expression softening. The crying and whispers ceased, and the house felt peaceful. Lauren later discovered that the portraits were of twin sisters who had lived in the house long ago. One had died tragically, and her spirit had been trapped in the painting, searching for her sister. Lauren kept both portraits together, ensuring the sisters would never be separated again. Though she never experienced any more supernatural events, she couldn't shake the feeling that the house had been watching over her, grateful for reuniting the lost souls. After the incident, Lauren researched further and discovered that the twin sisters had been deeply connected in life, often finishing each other's sentences and sharing an almost telepathic bond. Their separation had been a result of a tragic accident, one sister falling ill and the other succumbing to grief. Lauren began to feel a protective presence in the house. She would find small tokens like flowers or trinkets left in places she hadn't placed them. It was as if the sisters were thanking her in their own way, ensuring she never felt alone. Though the crying had ceased, Lauren often felt a gentle touch on her shoulder, a reminder that the past was ever present, watching over her in the quiet moments.